It's 14. Okay. Okay. We'll call the regular city council meeting Tuesday, June 25th, Tuesday, June 25th, 2019 to order. I apologize. We're running a little bit late. We had a special council meeting earlier and it took a little longer than we thought. So thank you for everybody for bearing with us as we get going. Are there any changes to the agenda, Edmund? Ms. Winder?
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration has no amendments to the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Hendricks?
So move, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Tonight we have on the consent agenda, we have looks like 4 items. I move the council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Item 5A, regular council meeting of June 11th, 2019 minutes. Item 5B, special committee of the whole meeting, June 18, 2019 minutes. And reports from Councillor Stout and Councillor Barnhart, items 10A and 10B respectively. Discussion on the motion. Okay, seeing none. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Which brings us to item 4, the open forum. Am I correct? Nobody is currently registered, Ms. Winder? Thank you. Which brings us to no public hearings, no registered presentation, which brings us to item 8A, the social master plan, our inclusivity. Ms. Williston and crew.
So, good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. I'd like to preface this by saying that we have no intention for going for 3 hours tonight, like the previous Committee of the Whole. So we are going to keep this brief. We are going to keep this high level. And I'm very aware and conscious of the time. So as you know, I'm Kim Williston, the FCSS Director for the City. And with me tonight, I have 2 consultants. I have Jeff from Urban Systems, and I have Jen Casorso from Urban Matters. And they are the consultants that we retain to help us develop the social master plan. So tonight I'm excited because 9 months of hard work and research and community engagement brings us back in front of you this evening to present the report and the social master plan. So I am going to let Jen and Jeff do the major part of the presentation. However, I would like to say that this social master plan, it's been a very collaborative process, and we're hoping that Council do accept the report, and we're also hoping that it is a report that will be considered for any future planning in growth and development that the City of Beaumont undertakes. So, Jen?
Thank you.
Great.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us here this evening. First, I want to acknowledge that we're located on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional gathering place for diverse Indigenous people. I'm a guest here on their land today, and I'm happy to be here. Jeff and I are going to give you an overview of our inclusivity, and hopefully you'll have some questions for us, and we'll go into some conversation. So we have, this is sort of a long introduction, but really we want to just map out the process that we've spent time developing your plan in the last 10 months. And so we'll give a little bit of background, purpose, some of the demographic highlights, engagement highlights, best practices review, and really dive into the plan and all the different components to it in 10 minutes or so. I'll make it really brief for you. So background and purpose, basically the purpose that you set out for developing a social master plan was to provide some direction related to social supports and services over a 10-year period. I'll keep coming back to that. I think it's really important to be mindful that this is 10 years. So it might seem really daunting, the plan right now. There's a lot in it, but it is 10 years for implementation. And so it doesn't mean it all has to happen tomorrow. It also embraces the complexity of today's social fabric and recognizes the different roles and responsibilities and opportunities within Beaumont to ensure that residents have a sustainable and inclusive access to supports that make them feel connected in the community. I'll say right now that that's sort of the intangible. It's really an emphasis around relationships and the importance of understanding the lives that people have here in Beaumont and how the different social systems work together to provide a vibrant community. So this is a little different than what you might be familiar with, like understanding capital-based projects and numbers and, forecasting budgets related to those types of activities. This is really about relationship building, understanding the capacity in your community, looking at emerging issues and trends. And as you review all of that information, building up your sort of systems internally. And this is really a tool to help guide some of those decision-making efforts that you can have. Set some future direction and identify important connections. And that support alignment of policies and practices, both inside and outside the city government. So this is just a snapshot. We recognize that you you conduct a municipal census every year, provide a really comprehensive report. This just highlights a few things that stuck out for us that were important within this plan. One is your population growth. You will recognize this, but you're growing quite quickly. You're at a really important time right now to have this social master plan in place to help support you as you continue to grow. Obviously, you have a younger sort of population. Average age is 32. Your largest population group is youth, and part of the understanding the demographics, it shows that some of your population is going to require some different level of supports than maybe adults do. Like youth require some different things than adults do, and so recognizing that they're a large part of your population is important in how you maybe address some of the social master plan. Also, what we highlighted here was that 39% of the renter households in your community pay more than 30% of their income on shelter, and that means that they're in some form of financial stress, and it can affect their quality of life. They're spending more of their income on shelter. It's something that you can mitigate, and we understand that you also have on your task within your planning department to develop an affordable housing or housing strategy. So this would work hand in hand with that. And then we have noticed as well in the data that you have a high percentage of your population that work outside of the community. And so they're likely accessing some of the supports in Edmonton as where most people have been going based on the data. And not that you'll necessarily ever attract all of those occupations in your community. I think we also recognize the effort of economic development and how do you attract some of those occupations in your community that help maybe reduce that number and bring people here.
So we just wanted to highlight some of the engagement activities that helped inform us with the strategies and actions in the social master plan, our inclusivity. We had an open house working beside FCSS, had about 60 independent individuals come in and speak to myself about what the social determinants of health, we'll speak to that a little bit later, and how they saw their quality of life. We also launched an online survey and had 70 participants, some of which we had the support from communications to go to the seniors complex to ask them for paper copies and to inform us as well so that we could get as many unique identifiers as possible. We also interviewed all 7 mayor and council yourselves, so thank you for your time for that, including 13 city departments and their teams and their leads. Those help inform us to understand broader community context, what you're hearing from your constituencies, but also the capacity within the organization and what gaps and opportunities there can be. We also spoke to 18 community organizations that service the citizens of Beaumont, and they're the ones that work on the ground with a lot of these individuals and their clients, and that helps informs us on some of those bigger trends and issues that they're having and challenges and struggles that they're trying to face right now. And also we had 4 focus groups with 29 individuals representing youth, seniors, people with disabilities, and families, giving us more intensive workshops to understand how they see their quality of life needs and where are the gaps and where are the opportunities and what they would like to see in the future.
Part of your council package, you would have had the engagement activity report. And so that's sort of all of the notes and everything that was collected through the whole process, including with the Beaumont Interagency Group that FCSS facilitates on a quarterly basis. Right? Yeah. So wanted to share with you a couple of key highlights just as you're considering adopting this plan. We did a best practices review with 4 different municipalities of similar comparison to yourselves, which would be Spruce Grove, City of Leduc, Chestermere, and Okotoks, and looked at their social planning approach. And these are some of the key highlights. They're a little bit more comprehensive within the plan themselves, but you'll see that political leadership and backing is on the topic of social master plans or social planning is key. So your leadership already demonstrates that by recognizing a social master plan was an important function of how you want to grow Beaumont. Some of the municipalities assign financial resources to key services that fall under the social determinants of health. That can be done in an emergent way or with some annual planning. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Include broader aspects of social planning and health that may seem challenging to tackle, such as crime prevention, youth mental health, domestic violence, and reconciliation. So they're quite comprehensive in the types of issues that they address. And then engagement and community convening was important to success. So again, kind of coming back to that relationship building piece. Organizational structure, this looked different in each of the communities, but really what stood out was that Community Services Department with the other local governments oversaw community and social development, and that FCSS in each community played a lot of the lead roles in implementing tasks. And then that there was also dedicated staff to implement initiatives and help carry things forward over the goals. So we want to dive in on the plan itself, talk to you about the visions and principles, something that we understood from yourselves through the interview process, as well as how you set up this within your strategic plan and your municipal development plan, was that you really wanted all these plans to connect to each other. And that makes really good sense from a systems level approach and from an accountability perspective as an organization and as a council. And so we spent our time poring over your strategic plan, the municipal development plan, and other applicable plans, including FCSS specific operational plans, and connecting the dots. And so these core principles of basic needs, access to services, parenting support, safety and security, equity and security really relate back to your core principles within your strategic plan. And the vision for the social master plan is really about enhancing the well-being of Beaumont residents through compassion, inclusion, and resiliency. Those are really important words and very relatable to relationship building and the importance of that. In addition to the sort of principles, we've got some system level outcomes, and you'll see on the left those are your words within your strategic plan. So engagement and inclusion, regional collaboration, exceptional service delivery, integration and adaptability. And we felt very confident that the social master plan also addresses those outcomes. And you'll see engagement and inclusion particularly for the social master plan, that residents should have equal access to social services that recognize and respect cultural diversity and inclusion. And this includes knowing where to receive updates, provide feedback, continue and contribute to the creation of programs and services. And then on regional collaboration, that's also very important in the social master plan. We recognize that the municipality is not the sole implementer or responsibility for making the community vibrant. And so for yourselves, there's a large opportunity there, I think, for continued growth within regional collaboration, and something that you already do on a variety of topics, including transit. And the social master plan can help support those conversations and partnerships that you develop there. Back in January, we delivered a presentation that outlined the social determinants of health. So just bringing you back to the foundation of this whole plan was really to look at all aspects of well-being, and that's really rooted in the World Health Organization's and Health Canada's assignment of the social determinants of health. So those are indicated there in the graphic. So the goals of this social master plan include collaboration and partnerships, capturing voices. This one's really important. It's again coming back to working alongside the folks that FCSS is out there to support the lived experience voice for these complex social issues, and making sure that they're heard and that they are empowered to be a part of solution building as well. And then reduce barriers and provide respectful and inclusive action. And these again align with your municipal development plan and your strategic plan. So we want to talk a little bit about some early implementation. I'm going to go into the action plan a little bit as well, but we structured this in a couple of different ways. One, we looked at early implementation. This is a new plan for you. In addressing sort of the social complexities of the community. And so there's some infrastructure from a tangible people thing within the organization and among council that could really help to build the strong capacity it needs to kind of move forward over 10 years. And so these are some of the opportunities around implementations. We've got hosts sort of an implementation primer, both with within the organization, with staff and council, as well as out in the community. So getting people familiar with what is the social master plan, how do I connect to it? It's really important in terms of the whole organization because all the different departments have an opportunity to be a part of acting on this strategy. So to build their knowledge and awareness, it's important to go to them and share what's going on. And then ensure staff capacity. And this is looking at the skill set to bring a social lens to municipal and community issues. Work collaboratively, facilitate. This is something that FCSS does already really well. And so just looking at the adequacy of that, if there is additional staff capacity that's required. And then staff roles that could be shared across departments. That opens up opportunity for greater collaboration and the voice of social kind of related issues with infrastructure related projects and things like that. Think about accessibility would be a good example of where you could have good crossover between people with disabilities that FCSS is working with and looking or reviewing a major infrastructure project to ensure it's accommodating folks with disabilities and a variety of abilities outside of just people with limited mobility. And then foster capacity relationships with the Beaumont interagency group and continue to participate in regional and provincial roundtable discussions. And then ensure program planning and implementation includes lived experience voices and citizen participation. A couple of the long-term implementation actions to consider would be incorporating social planning into development and policy planning. To ensure that social priorities of community are considered in municipal planning processes. A couple of opportunities that you could do that. One would be whether you make an amendment to your municipal development plan that acknowledges the social master plan now that it's completed, creates a mechanism for ensuring review and that it's top of mind. Another would be looking at some of your procedural bylaw and figuring out how to incorporate its ongoing review and acknowledgement that exists. It's not legislated that you have this, so thinking long term, because this is a 10-year plan, if you're not here, how does this still carry some legs and continue? So integrating it a bit more within the organization. So you have the full tables in your package as part of the plan. One document that I'm not going to spend time talking about is the social responsibility matrix. It's in your package. It's Appendix A, and that's a tool for the community and for staff to understand the roles and responsibilities related to all of the social determinants of health, like legislative requirements. It just allows to see different partnership opportunities and who actually has the primary responsibility for programs and services. This, however, is your action plan, and how we designed it was to show the social determinants of health along the left-hand side, your municipal plans, including operational plans, but front and center, your strategic plan, goals and actions, your municipal development plan, actions, and then on the right are inclusivity, which are the actions related to each of those topics. And you will notice through much of them, it's really about strengthening partnerships within community, helping to bring some of the services from the region into the community, and a variety of ways that you can do that. Hopefully this will allow you to track your progress really well as it moves forward. So, a couple of considerations for you. This requires a whole of government approach, which I think you're already well positioned to do. You've articulated that well in your strategic plan. For ongoing kind of effort and collaboration between the city, FCSS, and the Beaumont Interagency Group, it would be really important to sit down and develop an annual implementation plan that allows you to be adaptive and emergent based on issues in your community. It also demonstrates that it's not just you that's responsible for implementing all of the services and programs required in the community, that you really might need to rely on others, other organizations, foundations, regional organizations. And then you can consider how you might allocate funding related to this. We haven't assigned any values to it because we feel like it's really important for an annual implementation plan to be developed. And that will also allow for proper costing if there is something that needs to happen, opportunity for leveraging grant money and the time that it comes available. So those are some considerations for you. Your turn. Sorry, that was long. So we said it was going to be short, and I'm sorry. You can get the hook.
It's okay. If you're about to get the hook, I had a hook too. But thank you very much for going through that. I appreciate it. It's a concise summary of the document that was ahead of us, and I will open it up to council for questions. Councilor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the 9 months of hard labor. You did give birth to this report, and it was a long time coming for me. Something that I've hoped for now in my second term, and had hoped that we would get to. I just want to say that I think this is one of the outcomes and necessities of us becoming a city. I think that we've realized now that we've grown to a point where we have to pay attention to this. What I'm going to ask, the question I'm going to ask you is if you could elaborate more on the social planning approach, and it could be Ms. Williston or Jen yourself, because I don't think it's well understood what a social planning approach means. Like you mentioned, it's different than building infrastructure. It's different than a special project. It's, we want to see this go I want to see this go from report to action. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's so difficult when we're not the ones that can always come through with the action. So can you explain, one of you, more about social planning and what that actually will mean for us as a council, what you're going to ask of us for political leadership as to where we can go with this?
Yeah, certainly can do that.
I have a follow-up after that.
Yep, perfect. So social planning is really trying to get a pulse on what we would typically look at intangible, right? I think I probably said it too many times, but around relationships and partnerships in community. You think about the social cohesion and the social capital that people have. It's all of the things that make them feel really good and happy in a day, right? And when any one of those pieces, which are this, like for us, how we framed it in here is the social determinants of health. If any one of those is off kilter, it usually affects all of them. And so the whole purpose of social planning is to really ensure that there's a rich and diverse complement of supports and services within a community. And particularly now as you're growing, you can start to recognize, okay, as we continue to grow, what are some of the supports that we're going to need? And I mean, really, you're at the forefront of working on preventing any major challenges in your community that so many other cities are facing right now related to homelessness and poverty in conditions where it's going to take like decades to get out of that, right? And right now, you're just starting to see some emergence of that, but you have the ability to influence it through at a political context, through advocating to your province and to your federal government for supports and services in your community that address those social determinants of health. And at a staff level, it's understanding the public and the different supports that people are accessing or that they're asking for in your community, and then how do you translate that into something, into a program, a service. And then how do you leverage all the different partnerships in your community, but also in the region to help provide what folks need?
Yeah. Could I ask my supplemental in that context? Maybe Ms. Wilson, you want to chime in on before I ask the supplemental, or do you want to hear the supplemental first?
I'll chime in.
Go ahead.
Councillor Brown-Hardy. I think for us, traditionally, we have been a little bit more reactive in our approach. FCSS is currently a smaller department within the municipality, and our focus has been providing programs and services based on, I would say, more of the immediate need. So we have social workers that are hired to provide services in the here and now. The social planning piece gives us that additional focus that we can be a little bit more proactive, and we can look at some of these actions that are being recommended, and absolutely, we are not solely responsible, but we can play that facilitator through that social planner. So that enables us to basically have a more directed focus on working specifically on that collaborative piece, working with our partners in BIG, on the regional piece, even the provincial piece, that I think we need to get some traction on so that we can, our poverty levels, our housing or lack of housing, it's not quite at the critical mass that maybe some of the other communities are, and particularly Edmonton, right? So I think this social planning piece, we can be a little bit more proactive and we can focus on that. But I realize that we're just one piece of the puzzle. So it is that very much that collaborative piece. And I see the value in that working with our planning department. I see the huge connection and crossover there, which currently we do. It's piecemeal. We struggle. We do what we can. But we need heavier emphasis on that area, certainly. And now and moving forward, like this is a 10-year plan for sure.
Where I'd like to see some specifics, because I understand what you're saying. I've worked in the field many years. People may not all understand exactly what does that look like. So if you could bring it down to specifics, say, for example, for youth, maybe youth and mental health services, what might be a request to council, whether at budget time or as a project or whatever that might be, that might, and I'm not saying it is, but what would be an example of something that might come forward that this council could feel it took action based on a planning document that we have?
So, Councillor Barnhart, to the youth example you've given, so one of the actions out of this, and prior to this, was the youth committee, the youth council. So that's something that we'll be bringing another report back. We want council involvement. on that. We want council's buy-in. We want council to understand in this plan that they have a role too. And so there will be opportunities for council. And then obviously as we work through this summer, through our budget process, you may see some asks through that process as well to help us to elevate this and to move it forward.
I hope so. My hope is that this actually gets action and gets some momentum. It's not a plan that we can say we've done. It's only the beginning of that. So thank you very much for your work.
Councillor Van Niekerk.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Got a few questions just around the feedback side of things. On the open house feedback, did you encounter any surprises in any of the feedback that you received at the open house in particular?
I don't think we found any. Thank you, Councillor, for the question.
Yeah.
I don't think we found anything surprising. We had done the focus groups beforehand, and so we had a lot of the gaps kind of being brought up in those more concentrated groups and concentrated discussions. So things like transit being more affordable or accessible. We had some families that had some of the perspectives that didn't attend the focus group from that had individuals in their family with disabilities that would bring up some of the same barriers that they're facing, and sometimes a gap in between ages 12 to 18 and having supports after school for families with children with disabilities. And so there were a lot of support services there. And so that was more reiteration and kind of reaffirming at the open house. A lot of the general public had very positive reactions to their quality of life in Beaumont. They would mention things here and there about not having as many job opportunities closer to home, but that is something that they are able to go elsewhere to find employment, and that was not a problem to them. But it was just more reiteration from things from those that had lived experiences that could reinform us that this is something that is an issue. We need to bring this back into our framework.
Perfect. And then just to comment on I do like some of the numbers a little bit around the numbers of respondents to the online survey. Would you expect that number to be higher, lower? Was it just right? Maybe comment on the number of respondents to the online portion.
Yeah, I think we're pleased with the engagement and the input that we did receive. I think, where effort around a social master plan is really important is understanding those first voices of people who are experiencing the challenges that we're trying to mitigate, right, or improve those life challenges. And so for online survey, you never really know how many people you're going to get. Time of year influences that. Life goings on will influence it. We also recognize that there is a lot of engagement occurring with other initiatives in the community, other plans, and so you can sometimes get engagement fatigue in folks. But also, this is something that's harder, to Councillor Barnhart's comment, it's harder to quantify, to really grab onto. What does that mean, right? Most people only recognize that there's something wrong when they've lost what they had that made them feel good, right? It's hard to actually say, oh, I want you to keep doing this because then I have access to this service and support. So it might not be top of mind for some folks, but we were pleased with what we did hear from the community.
And then going down that same path, is that okay?
Cool, yeah.
Okay. So I think you kind of feel where I'm going with this a little bit. My next question is how are we doing at identifying those who are in need? And did we hear from them?
Yeah, so for us, we worked with FCSS to help support us and get into folks specific on the focus group end. So right off the bat, we wanted to make sure that we gathered perspectives from a variety of populations that are often seen. One, your population shows that we should talk to youth, right? You've got a senior population, although it's not that big, how are they feeling supported? And then there's a group of folks with disabilities, various disabilities. So what are their challenges within the community? And then families is that, you're a very family-centric community, so let's understand what they have to say. So we relied on FCSS team to help us with the focus groups, and that would be getting to the folks that might be experiencing more vulnerabilities in your community than, say, others.
One final.
Sure.
Switching gears, in the engagement piece and in the report, there was the word affordable housing come up a fair bit. It was mentioned by some of the respondents in various, sections, I guess you'd say, in the 109 pages of that one. So if you could comment on some of the feedback received on affordable housing and, some of the thoughts that you have. You also identified that we're doing a whole bunch of master plans of a whole bunch of different things, and we very much are. But one of the things that's important to me in this whole conversation is linking the whole affordable housing piece to regional collaboration and into the plans that are happening right now. Because I feel that if we get too far down a path here with a whole bunch of plans and all the acronyms in the planning world, to the point where we're thinking about what corner store goes where, we may have missed the affordable housing conversation and where it will physically fit in our community. So those are my personal thoughts. But if you could speak to some of the feedback received around affordable housing, I'd like to hear that.
So just to kind of go over affordable housing really quickly, the conversations are more about a spectrum of housing options available to residents in Beaumont. So it may not have to all be affordable. Like when we say affordable, it comes with a lot of baggage. We all tend to think about supportive housing or shelters and that kind of thing and completely subsidized. It doesn't have to be to that end of the extreme. There are options in between market housing, what we call, and non-market housing. And so there are, I think there's a desire to have just a more variety of options available to the different constituents within Beaumont. So for instance, I'm going to target seniors. A lot of seniors had concern that there weren't a lot of affordable housing because of their low income, but also the fact that it wasn't suitable. So not having enough ground level smaller units that weren't 3-bedroom size units, but having 1-bedroom size where they could downsize and still stay in the community. And that is their desire. They've grown up here and have raised their families, but they want to stay closer to family if possible. And so it's, from what I've heard, a lot of it is about having more options. And another one was on youth. If they're getting to the point of graduation and they're leaving, but they leave to go to school, but they want to come back to the community, there aren't a whole lot of options for single individuals that are young adults that would like to live in Beaumont. And having some of those more varied options is something that is pretty much desired.
Yeah, one way I'll just follow up. How we heard all that feedback and how it translated into your plan is under Section 5 is in the Appendix B is physical environments, and there's a section on affordable housing. And some of the actions that we included in the plan based on all that feedback was, one, support the development of your housing needs assessment and action plan, but then establish collaborative partnerships with both federal and provincial governments for the creation of housing. Partly, like when you look at your housing continuum, you have from shelter to transitional or supportive housing, then to affordable market housing, and then market housing beyond that. And so there's a whole array. There is an indication within some of the actions here that there are some crisis units that are likely going to be required, specific to youth. And seniors, so if there's abuse situation or fleeing violence kind of situation as well for women, that having some support. And this would be agencies that would do this. What would your role be? Supporting advocacy to get funding for those types of units in the community, right? So those partnerships with the province and the federal government will be really important. The federal government, of course, their housing strategy is, providing funds and things like that. It'll be interesting to see how the provincial government starts to address housing and if they make investments, but positioning yourself to be collaborative and say, we need some of that to make sure we have a good complement of housing would be important.
Yeah, just one final comment.
Sure.
So, appreciate sharing all that information. like you had said, the affordable housing, quote unquote, often seems to come with baggage, but that's kind of not where my head's at. What I've talked to a lot of people about is the Beaumont of the future doing better at your first house and your last house, and that kind of speaks to what you were saying, whether it's a new graduate, coming back to the community, living here, and then spreading their wings from there, or, selling the house, downsizing, into not feeling you have to go into the city, right? So that's a lot of perspective for Beaumont residents with that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from members of council? Councillor Daniluk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much. Ms. Wilson, it's nice to see you in front of council again. Appreciate that. Not 3 hours like last time, like you said. That was quite funny, actually. My one thought is, with the social master plan, going forward, we're going to be setting expectations in the community of what our council and future council should be doing with this plan over the next 10 years. Part of me is asking the question is, with this program or this master plan, are we going to be developing new programs, new initiatives that may be infringing or sort of duplicating what the province and federal government should be doing for social master plan activities? You know what I'm getting at? I want to be sure if we're going to be looking at a new commitment to various programs, they'll have a dollar figure attached to them for future councils and our council and future councils to worry about. How do we avoid duplication of services, provincially and federally, that should be there? Is it our job to do those services? You know where I'm getting at with that question? I'm not sure any kind of programs you may have involved for us to be going forward with.
Sure. Councillor Daniluk, I mean, we have funding through the province, so it's an 80-20 calculation. So 80% is funded currently through the province, and we hope it continues to be funded through the province. However, we do have a mandate, and our mandate is more prevention and education. And so, absolutely, that limits us somewhat. So we operate and function on the premise that we don't duplicate services. We are very conscious of that. There's education, there's health, there's other ministries that take responsibilities for different areas within the social system. However, we also recognize that we need to be working together, which we do very well at the regional level, but we need to also be collaborative in our advocacy work to not only municipal government, but to certainly provincial government. I believe we have opportunities. We have a new government. We're sort of feeling our way through that. But I would like to say that I think it's all levels of government that have a responsibility. FCSS has a piece of it. I am a strong proponent. I do not like duplication of services. That's a waste of everybody's time and dollars. And so that collaborative piece is important, but I still feel that there's a role for all three levels of government, and I think there's an advocacy role on behalf of FCSS and that Beaumont interagency team, which houses many of, there's health in there, there's housing through the Duke Foundation, there's the food bank, there's mental health. So I think those stakeholders at the table will be instrumental in advocating, whether it's resources, funding, as we move forward in this, for sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Barnett.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just wonder if I could just chime in here as well on what Councillor Daniluk's question was, because that's exactly the point I was trying to raise, and I appreciate that he brought it up in that context, because it's often misunderstood what our role is. And if we sit back and wait for other orders of government to assess our need and what our citizens need, they won't come and give it to us just because we're sitting here waiting. So it takes resources. It takes requirements of people like yourselves, and FCSS is our arm that can do that, our department that can do that, to advocate. But also, before you advocate, you need information. And that information doesn't come. As questions been asked about how many do we have or what is the need, how many is too many when people are suffering and they need support. So to get ahead of this often requires us to make an investment before it's too obvious that we need it, and that's often difficult. So That's why I'm so appreciative of this. It at least gives us an opportunity to talk about what does that political leadership look like, and how can we assure that we are at least in front of it. It doesn't mean we create a program every time we see one person has a problem, but it does mean that we keep our fingers on the pulse and get a sense of that before it's too late. So it isn't easy, and I appreciate that we're at least talking about it at this point and what you brought forward. So thank you.
If I can just add to that, I think that the Beaumont Interagency Group, so that's the stakeholder group, that there's about 18 or 20 of us that meet quarterly. Those are the more of the senior level staff, they're the executive directors, they're the influencers in this region. So that's a pretty important and powerful table at the local level with stakeholders that can advocate, can look at how we use our resources. Absolutely. Do we need more resources? Absolutely we do. For sure we need resources, but we also have to look at how we can be creative within that Beaumont Interagency Group, use our resources together for collective impact. Because traditionally we're going it alone. It's like, we've got FCSS fighting for something, we've got housing fighting for something, and we've almost got that kind of competitive thing happening. Oh, housing's more important than transportation or social services. And so I think what we've got going for us, and that's a positive that can help move this forward, is that core group, the Beaumont Interagency Group, recognizing that absolutely additional resources are going to be required if we are seriously going to be committed to seeing some of these actions through and ending in positive results.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, I had one that didn't get answered. I was looking at the social determinants of health action plan, and as I was reading through it, I noticed there's a lot of things that we're currently doing. There's a lot of things that we're not currently doing. Do we have any idea of what our current state is, what the plan moving forward is, and have we captured that? And how are we planning to move that into the planning department and other things?
Okay, so Your Worship, so speaking to that, how have we captured that? We are required, so FCSS is required annually to report outcomes to the province. It's that accountability piece to our funder. And so we have captured certainly some statistics. Some of them are actually stats. Some of them are actually more qualitative data that speak to some of those areas, but not to all of those areas that have been identified. So I would say we're doing a little bit of that. Do we need to do a better job? Yes, we do. We just are reporting on what the province expects us to report on. So,
okay, I was more looking not necessarily from what we have to report to the province, but more what we as a community and as an administration and the city as a whole are going to do to put this in. Because for me, plans like this are only as good as the paper they're written on if we actually execute them. Otherwise, we spent a lot of money on nothing.
Okay, I'm going to speak to that, and I'm going to let Jen. Going into the development of this plan, it has always been my goal and my desire that this is a valuable, meaningful plan that is not going to sit on a shelf. I've been there, done it. I've been there and done it before, and it's extremely frustrating when FCSS is the only one that seems to have an investment in the outcome of a plan. So my intention is that we're not going down that route. We've invested a lot of time, energy, our stakeholders' time and energy, consultants. We have a really good plan with action items, which I am going to help facilitate and guide, not on my own, but with help from other stakeholders to ensure that this has legs and that it evolves and that we are moving the needle on some of this stuff, because we need to be doing that. I'm committed as the director to doing that. And I really truly believe that now I have a document with some actionables, with some teeth to it. I have a stakeholder group that's invested in it, with council's investment in this. I really truly believe we can make positive change for this community. Absolutely.
Ms. Mohammed, you had a couple comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. So with this being a directional plan, we'll take this plan and compare it to the other plans that we have and make amendments. So if the MDP, the Municipal Development Plan, needs amendments, we'll make amendments there. Any adjustments to the land use bylaw, and as these other directional plans are created as well. So our prosperity, our places in play, the recreational master plan, as those are being created. Since all these plans kind of get created year by year, you have to like update your other plans as you go and as new information comes. And I think this will also be a part of council's strategic planning process as you review your strategic plan. These directional plans have uncovered a lot of information that maybe we didn't have back in 2017. So we'll be pulling that information to the fore and then having you revisit your pillars and your goals and see if you need to add anything or if they're getting you in the direction that you want to go. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, did you want to? No, you're good. Okay, that really answered the question that I had, so that's awesome. If there's no further comments from members of council, do we have a member of council willing to move the recommendation? Councillor Barnhart.
Wasn't sure who got there first. So moved, Your Worship.
So moved. So, hang on, there's a couple recommendations. So the recommendation is that council approve the Art Inclusivity Beaumont Social Master Plan final report is presented. Discussion on the motion? All in favor? Hang on. Sorry. There we go. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in tonight.
Yes, thank you.
No, it's well, it's 3 options, and 2 are very similar.
Two motions.
Just a second. We need the second one? Okay. All right. Do I have a member of council willing to move this move the second motion? I didn't realize there was 2. Sorry.
What else wants to? All right, we'll move it as well.
Councillor Barnhart?
I move that council consider Canada's social determinants of health as outlined in our inclusivity Beaumont social master plan in all future growth and development in Beaumont.
Discussion on the motion?
And we're so moved.
All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Sorry, I thought they were. Yeah, never mind. All right, this brings us to item 8B. Alberta Urban Municipality Association 2019 Distinguished Service Award nomination. Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Your Worship. It is my pleasure to bring this before you tonight. We are proposing to have Councillor Hendricks recognized for over 20 years of service in Beaumont. His service is so comprehensive, we could not fit it in the small box on the application. So we are sending along 3 pages worth summarizing what he has done for the great city of Beaumont over the years. So the report is here, and our recommendation is that council approve the nomination of Councillor Perry Hendricks for an Alberta Urban Municipalities Association 2019 Distinguished Service Award. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm more than happy to make that motion tonight that council approve the nomination of Councillor Perry Hendricks for an Alberta Urban Municipality Association 2019 Distinguished Service Award. Councillor Hendricks has really, like I was reading through the bio, the amount of service and time and effort that you put into this community is been above and beyond what could normally be expected. And it was kind of funny. It was really interesting. I recently had the privilege of sitting on the social or recreational cost share committee with the County of Leduc, and anybody sat in those meetings with the County of Leduc, they're cheap. And it was really fun watching Councillor Hendricks educate them all on the past and how we got to where we're at and why the formulas are where the formulas are. And it was fun watching him negotiate. It was good. We just about have something that we're prepared to recommend to council. There's just one more form coming back, but I was really pleased to work with him on that and look forward to working with him on that in the future. And I'm really happy that we can make this tonight. So any discussion on the motion? Councillor Danlock. Sorry, Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one quick query. I was actually reading through the nomination biographical information, and I noticed that under Councillor Hendricks' terms of service, that term 5 was from 2004 to 2007, and term 6 was from 2005 to 2007. Is that a typo, or did he serve two terms simultaneously?
It is a typo.
Okay, so I assume we will correct that. But yes, I'll add my voice to it's a hugely impressive record, and I can't think of I'm certainly not aware of anybody who would be a more deserving recipient of that award.
Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't spend too much time embarrassing our worthy nominee this evening, but I've always called Councillor Hendricks the senator out of respect for his long service, and you saw how long that service has been on the nomination form. So again, congratulations, and no one's more, as Councillor Stout said, no one's more deserving than yourself. I look forward to your being the recipient of this award.
No, it was very well done. Point of order. Does he get to vote on his own? Just kidding. All in favor?
Councillor Hendricks.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Hendricks.
No, I just want to say, first of all, huge thank you. Thank you for the nomination, and thank you for council supporting this. This has been fantastic. But a huge thank you to my family. It's been a lot of work, and without a fantastic family, it wouldn't have happened. So, and a wife that deserves the award long before I do, for all the effort and time and collaboration. So, thanks. Thank you so much.
We appreciate that.
So thank you.
And thank you, too, for allowing him to do what he does. All right, call the vote. And that carries unanimously. One more round of applause. All right, which brings us to, we have no bylaws. We've already approved the council report. We've already approved the council reports. Are there any inquiries of admin from council? Okay, Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, could we get an update on the progress on Ella to date? I'm thinking of the sponsorship, of the breakdown and return to service, and of the rescheduling of the Ryan Jesperson on-board broadcast, if that's the correct name for what I'm describing.
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Stout. So in regards to Ella's current status, we have technicians that arrived from the Easy Mile Denver operations. They're on site right now. Ella is currently not in Beaumont. She is at a larger shop where she's up on a hoist. The parts are coming in on Thursday from France for her repairs, and the technicians will be working quickly to get those put in. This was unforeseen. There's 40 of these on the road in the world, so there is not a lot of spare parts or technicians, and hence the reason it's taken some time to make this repair happen. But right from the Pacific Western folks to the Easy Mile folks across the globe, we are on it and targeting, if everything goes well, to have her back on the road with communications around that by this weekend. but the community can stay tuned. We're just waiting for those parts and those technicians. In regards to your other questions, sponsorships, we have had a considerable uptake from our name sponsors, which are on the vehicle, on all of the signs along the route. Can Traffic, ATS, Lafarge, TELUS, they continue to be amazing partners, providing significant in-kind financial support as well as technical support throughout the project. And we are also working with some other potential sponsors and partners that are interested in joining. I'm not going to throw out the specifics on those ones right now, but the good news is we've got a lot of post-secondary institutions that are now reaching out to us, and we're beginning to work with on different research projects that are taking place around the autonomous vehicle arena. Further to your question as well around the Jesperson radio show, it was unfortunate timing when the issue did take place. The radio show is very interested in coming back and making sure that opportunity happens. We're just working with them and keeping them abreast on when Ella hits the road again so we can schedule it and get some more specifics out to yourself and the community. But that definitely is a go. And we are just working closely with their production team to keep them up to speed. We also, in the past week, if council is not aware, we've had some other very good opportunities to showcase what Beaumont is doing. We've had a delegation from the Chinese Ministry of Transportation that were in town last week. We met with them as well as senior folks of Transport Canada from Ottawa who were out. I spent a couple of hours with them, briefing them on the project. A lot of interest in how we are doing the community integration side of it and some of the regulations that Canada's looking at developing. So that was a positive. We also then had another 30 commercial vehicle enforcement officers the next day in Beaumont doing a presentation and a walkthrough of the Ella vehicle, even though she was not in operation. It was an opportunity for those vehicle inspectors and the vehicle enforcement branch to see firsthand the future of the transportation industry, and there was a lot of really positive feedback and engagement by that group, both technical as well as at the community level. So I'm not sure if council was aware of those two recent in the past week groups that have come through.
Thank you. One concern that's been expressed to me is with the use of Ella on 50 Street, the concern has been expressed to me, and I can completely sympathise with this. Vehicles travelling northbound on 50 Street will not be able to make a right turn during hours when Ella is in operation. Is there, and I thought a long time about this to try and figure out why that would be so. Is there any way we can get around that? Because my concern is that what will actually happen is that traffic will use the front entrance to the Ken Nicol Regional Recreation Centre, and to circumvent that right turn. And it's an important right turn because the southern half of Beaumont, if they want to come to the library or J.E. Lapointe or this building or the ELCC, that's the natural, obvious route.
Certainly. Thank you for the question, Councillor Stout. We are going to be monitoring that very closely. The plans are to still allow right turns with a green light. However, no rights on red. But we are going to monitor that situation, similar to the concerns around traffic going through Ken Nicol in the first part of the project as well. We're monitoring that closely. We have not seen an increase there, a dramatic enough increase to change anything, but we are going to monitor it, and it's our goal to minimize the impact to the community and the traffic situations for this next phase, just like we have for the first. So we will take that into account. Part of our approvals through Alberta Transportation and others was that specific term, but all the parties are at the table, and we're going to watch it as soon as we have Ella back on the road.
Thank you. Did I understand you correctly that there is an option then to allow a right turn on a green light from 50 Street northbound into 55 Avenue, what would that be, eastbound?
We are working with the partners to see if that is going to be a possibility. But right now, the plan is no right turn on red, definitely. We're looking at what other options we can do to mitigate any impact to rerouting traffic or impacts on the northbound turn. So
Okay, thank you.
Something we're considering.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, switching gears a little bit, just wanted to acknowledge some of the conversation that's been coming through the community around sports fields and such, and wanted to see if administration could comment on, I guess, a couple of things, the one being the shutdown of the shale fields and such for baseball and the subsequent canceling of the tournament, and secondary, the overall concern raised, I guess, from the Baseball Association around fields in Beaumont. Just some commentary on that would be helpful for the community, I think. Thank you.
CEO.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk, through the mayor to yourself and the rest of council. The decision to shut down the sports field, the shale diamonds, was made by staff after observation and looking at the weather reports and the amount of moisture that we had. We needed to make the decision in a timely manner. We knew there was a big tournament going on that weekend. We wanted to notify the organizers on time, give them as much time as we could. I stand by the decision. It was a good decision. We risked severe damage to those shale fields that the operators felt could either be irreparable this summer or would cost us quite a bit of money. So we made that decision. In general, sports fields, as you know, and there's a report coming back to council as part of the Parks and Facilities Master Plan, is certainly high demand. The demographics in our community, and I saw a draft of a chart that shows communities 3 times our size. That's the type of demand that we have here in Beaumont. So it's certainly a challenge. As we see more development occur, that's where our opportunities will be to try and build these sports fields in. So we'll keep watching that, and then knowing that it's a hot item, and where we have an opportunity, we'll try and seize it.
Very much. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Worship. Just some feedback for council and for administration as well. As you know, we had the city celebration back on the 14th, and we had a fantastic block party. I was amazed how many people came up to me and said, my other councillors, I'm sure too, saying how great the event was. There's absolutely not a single negative comment of any kind from anybody I've talked to since then or that evening. They were amazed at how big our stage was. I was surprised how big our stage was that we had purchased for our community. I knew it was going to be big, but when you see it actually set up, it was amazing. I had long-term residents tell me they've never, ever shut down the street in Beaumont for a celebration of any kind of a block party. So we made history on that night. I didn't even know it was going to be a history in making night, and it was. So many people said it was great on council, but I didn't mention the fact that council set the idea, administration made it happen, and it was a top shelf event. And I think everyone I talked to said, let's do it again next month. And I thought, yeah, why not? You know, that was the best part about it. So, I mean, we don't often blow our own horns to council. It's not where our role really is. But I think in this situation, I'm happy to, blow our horn and say we did a hell of a job, and because we did do a hell of a job. So I know I can't say hell in the council, but I just did. Sorry. Thank you.
He just stole my thunder. So as we're still talking about that, the feedback that was received on that particular event was far and beyond, and I think strong consideration from council and administration should be into making that an annual event. But so I won't belabor it anymore because Councillor Danlock said it really well. Councillor Hendricks.
And can't say it loud enough. That weekend was off the charts, and tomorrow night's our promotions committee meeting, and I'll be giving a thumbs up yet again. The execution, the process, the people, the energy, the midway. You saw the lineups for the midway. Tickets purchases. You had the soapbox derby. 37 entrants, and it was wall to wall all the way down both sides of the road with parents, and RCs did a great job helping us out there, and same with bylaw. The whole weekend just happened, and it was fantastic. It was a buzz, and yes, we got to incorporate Friday night into this whole town and country days, or it's called Beaumont days, or whatever it's going to be called now. We got to incorporate that into the whole buzz of that weekend. It just really, really came off really well, and was really well received. So tomorrow night I'm going to give my thumbs up to the crew from the promotions and others, and a big thank you. I did send in a couple inquiries. Perhaps I'll just allow our CEO to answer those inquiries. Why don't you ask them? So I'll start with respect to 241. Range Road 241 has got a GVW max of 5,500 kgs. Lots of trucks up and down that road. Now I'm hearing that maybe some of these guys are getting special permission, whatever's, to be on that road, but that road I don't believe is designed for anything beyond that in terms of axle load and speed. Is certainly 60 kilometers is, as I witnessed it, because I was brought out there by an individual who was quite concerned, and it didn't take long for the trucks to go by and the speed to come by. So.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Hendricks, through the mayor to yourself and the rest of council. Yeah, I did check with ME today, and there is, as a result of construction, there is some trucks that are allowed to go through there, but they're going to go take a closer look at it as far as the speed's concerned. Also pass that along to the RCMP. So we're going to monitor it a little closer.
Right. And I do recall when we put asphalt down on that road, it was designed as something that wasn't going to carry much beyond 5,500 kgs. So.
Well, typically when we grant those permits, and I'm not saying we have a permit, so they're going to check into that. We take that into consideration. You're right. We're not just going to allow, out of convenience, somebody to ruin our road.
Right.
So Emmy is going to look into it, and when I find the facts, I'll send them by email to council.
The second one I sent in was a concerned resident on the left turn lane, southbound on 50th Street at 52nd. There is an arrow that apparently never does come on. And I did hang around to see if it ever did come on. Then the time I was there, it didn't. The green solid came on, but the advance arrow didn't. The advance arrow going the other way did, but not the one going eastbound. So.
We checked with infrastructure, and who checked with CAN Traffic, and you're right, that green light is not programmed to come on, the flashing arrow. We're going to find out why. Either it's an error or the traffic volumes don't warrant the turn, but it begs the question, why is the light up there in the first place? So let me get some more information on that. But as it is right now, it's not programmed.
Yeah, so I watched them load up in terms of the turning.
Stacking.
And they get stacked. That side gets to go. These guys have to wait. They don't get to go. So
it may have something to do, engineers are a lot smarter than I am, traffic engineers when it comes to that, may have something to do with the pedestrian traffic on that side of the road, but we're going to find out.
Okay.
Why is it not programmed?
And the last one for me was on another individual approached me, which is one of these, when you have these events, you get a lot of like the Friday night event, you get a lot of interaction. So, and it was on the pickup of their garbage, and they used to have it on the lane side, which is they back onto 49th, they're 49th Street. Yep. They back onto the lane, which backs onto the Mac store. That lane. They used to have their garbage picked up on that side. Now they have to have it drawn to the front. And I see his point. He said, look, we built all these garbage enclosures so that we could leave it in the back. Now we got to haul it through the yard to the front. In the winter, apparently that's more of an issue. But hence, they were just asking, can we pick it up from the back? I don't know.
The check with infrastructure as well. The waste collection on 49th Street, the east side is being collected in the lane. However, on the west side, there's an overhead power line issue with the side load truck. So I don't know if that's because the trucks are new, the last 2 years. But that's what we're told, is that the collection arm can't do this safely because of the overhead power lines.
Yeah, so when I did the walkthrough and I was trying to look for reasons, now all the commercial guys have their cans out the back also with the overhead dump.
Okay.
So I was trying.
I wasn't aware of that
because I was trying to talk myself out of it and say, well, why isn't it?
Yep.
But then I saw what was going on over there. I don't know. So,
okay, let me check into that. That's a response I got, but I didn't go out and physically look at it. So thank you.
Okay.
We'll follow up on all three of those.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no further requests, we will move down to item 11, CAO's update.
A few things. Try and be very quick. A number of them have been mentioned. Rob talked about Ella. One thing he didn't share with you, and it's pretty exciting as well, is Nate is looking at some of their curriculum for some of their technologies that are coming in the future. And because of Ella being in our community, they've invited Beaumont to sit at that table. And in fact, on Thursday, one of our staff will be spending the afternoon sharing some of our stories that would help build that curriculum. That is one of many, many different activities that are being either directly or indirectly associated with Ella. And Rob did a really good job of explaining that. I just need to really clarify that that's why we got in this. We got it, and it's not a $200,000 transportation system. It's a listen. We're open for business. We're looking at doing things differently. The legislation and the rules that are being developed with Alberta Transportation are being developed because of and with the city of Beaumont, and that's taking off like wildfire, which is exactly what we wanted to do. So I know council gets regularly beaten up on this one, which we're really glad we're admin on this one. But it's working, and we appreciate your support and your continued taking the shots. A couple of things on today. We were here in a planning and engineering meeting today, and they invited me, and it was pretty awesome. We talked about a bunch of different things. One was today alone we received 9 building permits for housing starts. We are about a little over 80%, the same numbers as we were this time last year, and that's pretty good considering where the economy is going, and that builders are being much more nervous and much more reserved about building. We're still seeing housing rates at second highest in the region. So that's pretty impressive for our city. We've to date processed 6 of those accelerated permits that council had implemented. I think it was May 1st. I think that's when that went into effect. So that's pretty neat. People are taking us up on that. I didn't know if they would. I don't have any experience with that. So that's pretty interesting to see. Appreciate everybody's patience yesterday. Councillor Hendricks talked about the power outage. It was a significant outage. It took pretty much 90% of the city out. It was done as a result of an underground failure. I thought Fortis did a pretty good job. They were updating us on a regular basis, and we'll have to figure out a better system to update you, telling us how many units were still out. And it was midnight before the last 107 got power. We were down to like 450 by 6 o'clock, but then it just took a little while to stage the other ones in. Don't want to belabor this, but the city celebration, well done to council and administration. Everybody showed up, and what I found that night walking up and down the street was not just the energy, but how positive everybody was. Councillor Dan, like you talked about, I haven't heard anything negative. First time there were some risks that were involved, but everybody just showed up and had a good time. I think Rob's staff was talking today that we estimated at any point in time there was between 3,000 and 5,000 people there. So to me, that's the spirit of Beaumont that we talk about, and that was on display. Councillor Danilek, you did a bang-up job on that flash dance or whatever, flash mob. That was pretty cool, and I agree. If we do this on an annual basis, that will be a requirement.
But we can make that happen. It's just a vote of council.
Anyway, that's all I had. I'd taken up more time than I expected. Well done. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Situation. So a new T-shirt for the next time he's out, and it'll read "More moves than Allied van lines."
Okay, that's awesome. All right, there is no correspondence of note tonight. Brings us to item 13, notice of motion. Councillor Danilek.
Thank you, Your Worship. I forgot to ask about protocol before, so do I simply state the notice of motion and that's all I need to do for this evening?
Pretty much. You simply state it.
That's what my understanding was?
And we move on with it.
Okay, thank you very much. I move that council direct administration to prepare an amendment for council's consideration, amending the bylaw 94419 land use bylaw, part 6, definitions restricted substance retail, to remove the distance for cannabis retail 500 meter restriction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We accept that notice of motion. Are there any other notices of motion this evening? Awesome. Can I get a motion to move into closed session pursuant to Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection on Privacy Act, harmful to intergovernmental relations, and pursuant to Section 24 of the Freedom of Information Protection Act, advice from officials. Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
All in favor? And that carries unanimously. And we'll take 2 minutes quickly to reset the room. Now we got to do 2 as far as I know. Got to do both. Yeah. Got to come back in. So we'll just take 2 minutes to reset the room, and then we'll move on with item 14A, Regional Transit Services Commission update.